I'm Elizabeth Cripe, Executive Director of Malachi's Message. Today, co-hosting is Emily Rochelle. She's our co-founder and board chair. We have the awesome privilege of hearing from Olivia Farabaugh. Olivia partnered with Malachi's Message in July of last year to create the CIRS support fund. And we quickly realized, Olivia, we haven't actually jumped on here and had you share your story, which is kind of essential. I mean, we partnered with you, we trust you. So we want to make sure your story is shared with everybody in regards to mold and CIRS. And if you haven't gone, I'm going to put the plug in because I can. If you haven't gone and listened to her new album, you totally should. It's a staple in our household, but go do it. She's amazing, and she's an amazing human being.
I appreciate that so much. It's been such an honor to partner with you guys. And I know I thought it was so funny. The first time we connected, it was originally for the podcast. And then we were like, okay, wait a minute. We have very similar like views of the future. And so now we're finally doing it. We're finally doing the podcast.
Almost a year later.
Yes.
Yeah, almost a year later. Yeah. Well, would you mind sharing with everybody first? Because obviously Malachi's Message started on the platform of helping those that are going through their mold journeys, right? After being exposed to mold, and your journey with CIRS has a mold component to it. So would you mind sharing with people really where your mold journey started first, and then we'll go to the other facets of this conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I moved into a home. It was the first time I ever moved out of my parents' house. So I was like getting the cheapest place I could, naturally. And that is the house that had black mold in the attic. And it was just a crawl space attic. And we always joke that there was like a dead body because it just looked creepy. But like, so we never went up there, like ever. Like we just decided that's not where we go. So we didn't find it forever. I mean, for 2 years. And my health started to decline. I had just infection after infection, and antibiotics weren't working, or I'd grow allergic to the antibiotic. And so it was a lot. I had different surgeries. I had sinus surgery, my tonsils out, like everything that we could. And it's wild looking back now, like I was healing in that space. And my mom is the one who figured it out. She's like, you never had these issues before, until you moved into this house. Like, you know what, you are right. And so we had someone come in, and we didn't know what to do. So we just like Googled someone. And so they came and did an air quality test, and they just, took a snippet of the air, and for like, I don't know, a half hour or something. But it was so bad, the levels were so bad that it was deemed inhabitable. So we had to, we got the call then. It was the weekend of July 4th. We were on our way home and we got the call, and he's like, you can't spend another night in your house. And so I don't think I'll ever forget that moment. And that's really the moment that changed, the course of my life and my husband's life. And so we immediately left all of our stuff and stayed with my parents. And so we went through a lot, like, as you both know, mentally and emotionally, until we are now, fast forward a couple years, living in a tiny house we created for a safe space. I was diagnosed with CIRS, Chronic Inflammatory Response Syndrome, back in November of 2020. So we moved into that house in 2016, and I was diagnosed in 2020. So honestly, even though it was 4 years, which felt like forever, when I talk about other people, when I talk with other people about their journeys, like 4 years is nothing. And so that really, it really moved me a lot, because I started sharing my story just on social media. And I was like, you know what, if this can help somebody figure out what's going on with them sooner than 4 years or 12 with some people, like maybe that's why I have this. And so I started sharing my story. And I started talking with people who were in a place of just, they didn't have family around. They didn't have the means to get out of the environment they were in. And they felt really, really stuck. And so there was a woman who was like, I'm ready just to be with the Lord at this point. Like, I'm feeling, very desperate. And I said to my husband, I'm like, I want so badly to just give her like whatever she like, what can we do? And like him and I, we weren't in any financial place to help. And that's when I had the idea, like there needs to be a fund, there needs to be something helping people with CIRS to get out of the situation that they're in, like just some resources. And so, and then I ended up finding you guys through, or you guys emailed me or whatever. And I had that time blocked out in the day to look up, like, how do you start a nonprofit? I knew nothing. Like, and Kane's like, I don't know what you're doing. I said, I don't know what I'm doing either, but I feel like this is like what I'm supposed to do. And then we got on the phone that day and we're like, our values are really aligning here. And so that's kind of how this whole journey began. And I just feel really blessed that God has included me in his plan, and hopefully we can help, other people in this situation.
I love how God works and how he connects, people. Just, I mean, you're in completely different states from us, and somehow, how did that connection happen? Because I know Elizabeth and you were the bridge there, for partnering with the foundation, but how did that happen?
Months before I actually contacted Olivia, on one of our posts, Eric from Exposing Mold posted a picture of Olivia with CIRS, and it was a post that didn't make sense, like as a comment with the post that we had created. So I kind of looked at it and went, oh, okay, that's cool, and brushed it off. And then months later, it kept coming to my mind, and it was finally like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to call her, or at least reach out and see if we can chat for the podcast, thinking for the podcast. And now I'm going, that's why that gut instinct kept like going, okay, you need to talk to her. And, I think it was God just saying, hey, I'm trying to tell you something here. Don't be so thick-headed, call her. And then we ended up talking for almost 2 hours, that initial conversation. And by the end of it, we were both like, wait, weren't we supposed to talk about a podcast? Like, how did that happen? So it was actually interesting. I was in the other room we live in a fifth wheel, and I was in the other room and I came out and my husband's like, you just sounded so happy on that call. Because he, in the background hears my tone with a lot of calls. I try and keep them private, but he goes, you just sounded so happy. Like that was different. And I was like, well, this is why it was different. He's on our board of directors. So I freely told him what the conversation was about. And he's like, oh my goodness, like that is really cool. Like that call was meant to happen. And then from there, now we're here, CIRS Fest under our belt for the first one, and a wait list of almost 40 people, over, I think almost at 40 people as of this morning. So that was how it happened. Then you guys met, right? The board met Olivia and Caden and agreed that this would be a good fit. So really through a post from Eric from Exposing Mold connected us to Olivia.
That's amazing.
So it's all intertwined, right?
It's amazing. And you know what? Yeah. It's so interesting because I had waited for so long to like share what I was going through with my health. Like I was playing shows, no one knew what was going on. I'd take like a 2-hour nap before I'd go play because I needed the energy. Like I was just doing all these things behind the scenes and I wasn't sharing what was going on. You know how we do that on social media. and so at that point, like that's what I was doing. I was doing the same thing. I wasn't being super transparent. I was sharing some of the, anxiety that I was going through, and I was sharing some of that, but I wasn't sharing exactly, like I wasn't sharing all the details. And I had a scan and I was waiting for like the disc that you're supposed to bring to the doctor. It was for my sinuses. I was having sinus issues. And so I was sitting in the waiting room and I saw a thing pop up on Instagram. I was scrolling, while I was waiting, and this ad came up and this girl said, right now, the situation that you're going through, someone needs to hear about it in real time. You don't have to wait until you have it all figured out. You need to share it now. And they were saying, she said, you know why your phone is called a phone? Because it's short for a microphone. It gives you the ability to spread what you have going on so it can reach the people that need to hear it. And I was like, okay, I've been denying this feeling that I should be sharing because I wanted to have it all figured out. And to be honest, I still don't got it figured out. I'm still learning. Like if I waited, I would never share my story, because I'm realizing now it's a journey, it's a growth. It's not, oh, one day I don't know and now I know everything. It's like that's what I'm learning. It's not how it is. And so I'm glad I saw that ad and I started sharing my story, and then Eric shared it. Like, it's so beautiful how everything just, divine planning and timing came together.
So I want to kind of ask you a question, and feel free. I mean, we can edit this out if it's too personal. So I'm just going to state that now in case we have to. How long were you and Caden? Were you newly married when you moved into this house and started this exposure?
I was about to ask the same question because you are so cute, first and foremost.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Like such a big supporter for you, but yeah, I mean, were y'all newlyweds, and how did that impact your relationship when you started to decline health-wise?
Yeah, I think that is such a good question. I'm glad you brought it up, and thank you. He's awesome. I love him. I'm so grateful. And so where we were actually at in our relationship, we only started dating in 2015. So I moved into that house by myself at first. And then he moved in maybe like 9 months, something like that after. So like I was in the house first. And even when he moved in, he didn't have any issues. And so it was weird. And I graduated. So how old was I? I was like just turned 21 when I started getting sick. And so we were at a newer point in our relationship. We were only 2 years in or so whenever I started getting really sick, like all the time. Like at first I was like, oh, I have another sinus infection. That's weird. Okay, I'll just try another, like, that's okay. And I was still going to work. I was still doing my thing. And it was honestly, there was a lot of growth that happened with Caden and I in our relationship. And I started going to therapy in 2016, right around that time, but not for my health issues, because I just thought I'm going through a weird little spell of issues. And so I was going to therapy for other things that going on in my life emotionally. And I was so grateful that I did, because Caden, through my relationship with my therapist, she's like, I think a lot of this is also stemming from you not feeling well from this health issue. And so Caden would sit in with me on my therapy sessions, and I'd be able to hear his perspective as a support person, because that's a whole nother thing. I mean, that's a whole nother aspect. Some couples I know like both get sick, and then some it's like one or the other. And in each case, it's so different. And as you guys know, in your own relationships too, it's hard. And especially when you are the sick person, just from my perspective, I am feeling guilty. I'm feeling like I'm not able to provide for us. I'm not able to help. Like I wasn't able to work as much as I was. And so I was spending so much money on medication, and still, like, I'm not going to say this was all in the past. Like this is still presently spending a lot of money on medications. And like just the other day I had a conversation, and I'm grateful now we have the ability to be open about where we're at. And I was like, I'm feeling super guilty. I'm feeling, all these different ways. And now I'm able to tell him that. And he's like, okay, like I can see that. And we don't try to fix each other's problems. And I think that's what we were doing in the beginning. Like he so badly wanted to fix me not feeling well. I so badly wanted to fix the fact that I wasn't feeling well, and I wanted to take on all the stress I was putting on him. So it was like this weird dynamic at first, but once we broke through that, we are in just a beautiful place. There's still challenges, but I am glad that we had therapy right from the beginning and had that resource, because that really helped us grow a lot.
Did your health issues, and even like in the present day, has that affected your relationships with like your family members or your friends? Because I know we hear a lot about that with most people, is that also affects relationships with your friends and your family members. And a lot of people lose their friends and family members.
It is so true. I mean, and that's something that I've seen in my own life. And Like, I'll just share, like, literally every morning I have these statements that I say, like, and they've changed over time depending on where I'm realizing I'm putting too much pressure on myself. And so, like, my one statement I just changed to, because I realized this was coming up a lot for me, was like, God is bringing people into my life and taking people out of my life as he sees fit, because he sees things and hears things that I don't. And so that has been so hard for me, even though I say it every day. It's so hard, because like when you are sick and you have sort of something like this presently, like you don't look sick, like you guys know, like you don't normally, maybe you look a little drained, or but like you don't look, you're not in a hospital bed. So some are, you know, but most of the time you can walk around to an extent. And so it's hard when people can't see it and they're like, well, you're playing gigs, like you're doing the thing. It's like, well, you don't know what I have to do to get there. And so we had a lot of conversations that we had with family, like people we really cherished and who were having a hard time understanding. There was great resources in the book, Surviving Mold. And they actually have like a paper and like a letter basically that you can give to your family and friends, you can give to your workplace. And it says like, you know, if I can't come to your home, it's not because I don't love you. It's just because of what I have going on. And that was the hardest thing for us. So when we had to say to family, like, we can't come over to your house because like we're the same people. We don't want to inconvenience anyone. We don't want to, like, we want to be like as good with the flow as we can. And this really made us stop. Like we had to say like, okay, wait, no, like our needs are, we want to see you, we want to be with you, but we need to meet in like a different place. And that was really hard to say and hard for a lot of people to receive. But now that I've been like, this diagnosis happened in 2020, now we're in 2023. A lot of those family members have come around, and some of the friends that we have didn't really as much. And so we just know, just like the statement I still say, it's like, he's bringing people into my life and taking them out as he sees fit. So we try to remember that as well.
I'm just thinking, we talked to somebody recently, and one of the things they talked about too was with their relationships, that they have some of their friends that haven't adapted but are still willing to have a relationship with them. And I was just thinking as you were talking that I feel like that's part of the reality too, where people are going to leave and come into your life. Then sometimes there are people that are going to stay in your life, but your relationship with them is going to change. I think that's something that's hard, because most of us want to go, you know, okay, you either accept all of this and you're going to wade through the trenches with me 110%, or you can't be in my life right now. And I feel like as you come to a point of maintenance with these illnesses, that there's a middle ground that's really hard for us and for other people to kind of stand in and go, I can still have a relationship with you. I just have to accept that, you know, I used to call you my sister, like a sister to me because you were such a close friend, but now, you know, we'll get coffee once in a while, or we'll go to lunch once in a while, and our relationship has changed, but it doesn't mean that you have to be out of my life. And I think that's really hard to find that middle ground in this with relationships, to go, okay, maybe it's not that you have to leave, but like you said, your boundaries also shift as you develop in your illness and as you emotionally develop and are able to take on more as more energy is in maintenance. I just, that's why I was pondering and thinking, because I'm going, I feel like that's an aspect of it a lot of people forget too, that maybe your relationships just change with some people. Some people leave, some people enter, and sometimes they just shift and they look a little different.
I think that's like such a beautiful way to say it, honestly. Like that, I couldn't have said it any better. It's so true. And I think too, like for me at least, not having control of being able to say, oh no, like I'll just do it, like sure, like I'll just come over to your house, that's fine. Like just giving in to make the relationship work. And truly like finding at least for me, like the courage to say, no, I really need to put myself first here. And I really need this from you. And then putting yourself out vulnerably like that. And if that's not received well, that's hard. Like that hurts a lot. And so that's what I've had the most trouble with. And that was in the beginning, one of the like I am statements that I had. And it was just like right now in this season, I need to put my health first. Like, and that might change, but that's what I needed. I might be able to one day be more flexible, but right now I can't. In this season, I need to do what's best, even if others don't understand. I need to do what's best for my healing. And that is so hard. I truly think like the relationship aspect of things is just a whole nother chapter of healing, because it's like the medical side obviously and avoiding re-exposure is hard and all of that in itself, but I think it is so good. And that's why I love what you guys do on this podcast, because the emotional side of things is just as important, like having the support and having something to ground you just in everything. That's like a whole nother chapter of the healing.
Yeah, I completely agree. It took me years, honestly, to not get so mad or angry when others that I thought we had a really good relationship with didn't understand what we had to do to protect our health moving forward. Because in my mind, I'm like, if you care about me, if we're a good friend, you're going to look into this condition I'm telling you about, and you're going to understand why I can't do X, Y, or Z. Instead of making me feel bad, but then, I was like, you know what? I don't want to like our relationship to end. And I need to think about it in a different way, which is, what, I'm really glad that you don't understand what I'm going through. Because you haven't gone through it and you haven't experienced it. So I'm glad that, you don't have to do that. And if you don't want to understand what I have to do, then that's fine.
And that, I think that is so true. Like the people who really take time to understand, like that's the people that you want to keep nurturing that even more with. And it is so difficult whenever people, especially really close to you, don't want to learn. And I think like too, I'm realizing more just lately, to be honest, like I've always thought, oh, it's something I'm doing wrong. Like I'm not telling them enough how I am not feeling well, or I'm not doing this, or I'm not doing that. And then I like had put it all on myself, like it was my fault that they weren't like wanting to understand or something. And I think recognizing that, like, first of all, it's not always something that you've done. And like sometimes I'm finding that people don't want to take the time to learn because they're just scared. Sometimes it points to something they might have wrong in their house, and they realize that, shoot, this is going to be a lot of money for me to fix. So then denying that it's even a problem might just be easier. And so I think that is difficult when people, for their own reasons of whatever, they don't want to admit that it's a problem, because it could make their lives harder.
Yes, especially when they see, somebody like you or Elizabeth or me and what we had to go through in order to get ourselves better. That's a hard pill to swallow, and to think about having to do that for your own family.
I think sometimes too, like you plant the seed and then they're like, no, that's not what's going on. But the seed has been planted, and if they decide to acknowledge it and then, grow that knowledge, then that's cool. But like you've done all you can do. And if they decide to acknowledge it, that's their decision. And it's hard to step back, especially if you love them so much, to let them figure that out.
Yeah.
Olivia, can we circle back real quick to your I am statements? Because that was when we were creating the welcome packet for those on the assistance wait list. That was something that you brought into the equation. And can you just go through how that impacted you and what they are, and just mentally what that does for a person?
Yeah. So it's been, I have literally, I can't say how much it's changed me in my life. And so I learned this through therapy. Like I was doing this before like all the health issues began. I guess maybe right around that time. And then they've changed over time. And I never realized how much our minds are running without us recognizing. what we're actually thinking. And so through the I am statements, I've learned a lot. Through the Gupta program, I did that for a little bit. I also did this brain retraining, and that's more of a faith-based brain retraining. And I read this book called Enough. So all of these things that I've learned has compiled together, and recognizing how much our thought life and our thought pattern just rules everything. And so when you really like sit down and pay attention to, like, right when you wake up in the morning, for me, I was body scanning. I was like, am I sick? Do I feel throbby? Do I have enough energy to get through the day? I know I have this meeting, this. I don't think I'm gonna have enough energy. How much coffee can I drink? Like, it was like, like right in the morning, boom, wake up. I'm like already thinking, and I never noticed it until it was brought to my attention about your subconscious thoughts in your mind and how powerful it is. And so I started implementing the I am statements a while ago. And now through the Gupta program and everything, I recognize, man, this is why it's so powerful. So like, we're basically trying to stop our minds. Like whenever we realize like, oh, I'm ruminating on, am I going to get through the day? And then it's like recognizing that thought, stopping the thought and replacing it with something else. So a lot of times you can start your day by reading these I am statements. And that just kind of helps, like, all right, get the ball rolling. And then throughout the day, whenever you recognize, okay, I am freaking out, like, or I'm really not feeling well, what am I thinking about in my head? Then you can replace those thoughts with the I am statements or a Bible verse or whatever you feel is powerful to you. But how I've come up, well, my therapist told me to come up with it, and now how I've changed them over the years is I recognize what I'm thinking about throughout the day. So I'll just start writing down all the thoughts, all the negative thoughts and stuff. And like one of them I was saying earlier was about people leaving and people abandoning, and like whenever I can't help it. And so I recognized, I'm like, that is written down a lot on this paper. And so I said, okay, what's the real truth here? And instead of believing the lie that I believe it's the enemy just trying to attack our brains, instead of believing that lie, how can I switch things and believe the truth of what's going on? And so I cross out those negative thoughts and I write down, whatever I am statement, even if it's just your statements are, I'm weak, I can't get through the day, I'm weak. Your I am statement can be something as simple as, I am strong, I have strength. Or, if you want to use a scripture, whatever, or like, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Like whatever is powerful to you, that's what you want to replace it with. And so that's how I've come up with it. And, you can use it in any way you want or at any time of the day, but it's been so powerful to me. And I hope it can help, other people as they're going through this as well.
I think we need to take the page that we put in the welcome book on that, because you did a whole little chunk on just the mental processing with it and the I am statement template. And we need to put it on the CIRS page and then on our website. And we'll put a link to it in this podcast. That way, if people just want to go print it, they can put it on their fridge. So as they're going through this, that way they can replace it too, right? Per season. If it changes, print a new one and put it on your fridge.
Great. I love that. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. We need to do that before this podcast goes up. So Emily, I'll send you the links to that too.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love all the motivational things that you look at every single day to remind yourself, especially the one about, some people are just in your life for a season. And that's when you said that, I actually read that when I was going through that chapter of my life, trying to understand, how it's affecting my relationships. And that really helped me. I was like, you know what, they're not supposed to be in my next chapter. Their chapter is ending. Maybe they'll be in a chapter down the road, but right now they're not in this chapter with me.
Yeah. I think it's the saying my mom has said to me, and I'll probably butcher it, but it's like, people are in your life for a reason and for a season. Like maybe the season's your whole life, which would be great, but not always how it works. And so, the first time I looked at my life as seasons, it kind of just like made it a little bit of a relief. Like maybe unless you live in Florida, you always experience maybe the same season, but there's like this refresh of this changing of the seasons. It's just the way of life. It's just the world. It's just, we can't make winter not come as much as we want. As we're like, no, don't. But we also like, we can't make summer not come, which is a wonderful time. So it's like, we really don't have control, and it's terrifying. But once we like let go of the grasp of control, and we just like recognize that, okay, I'm supposed to learn something from this time in my life. Like, what is that? What are the opportunities that I have to grow in my mind, in my body, and my spirit? Like, there's a reason for it. And just like there's a reason people taken out of my life, like they're not in my life. I'm not growing through my relationship with them. Okay, this might be that season ending. It might be the winter coming, and that's okay. It's really hard to do. And it's like, as you guys know, and you have to remind yourself of it literally every day, that I don't have control, and that's okay.
Well, let's talk about the CIRS Fest, because honestly, that's amazing. You are the first person to put together, the CIRS Fest, through Malachi's message. This year, we're doing another CIRS Fest. Can you talk about where that's going to be?
Yes, I'm so excited. And that was amazing. Honestly, that was literally the divine hand. Like, I can't even express, I can't even say like, oh, we put together the first one. I mean, yeah, we were the human hand to do it, but we threw that together in 2 months, and everything worked. Like everything, like we got all the bands, we got the sponsorship, we got the venue, we got a face painter. Wait a minute, that was just an added plus. Like what? Like, it was amazing. And so I cannot wait to see what the second year brings. Like already, it's like, I'm just so excited about it. Like we were talking about it the other day, and I'm like, this is awesome. We got some killer bands already, and possibly like another on the way. And so basically, to answer your question, I got really excited. It's at Windridge Farms in Dallastown. No, is it Dallastown?
Yeah, it's Dallastown.
Okay. It is at Windridge Farms in Dallastown, Pennsylvania, my home state. I'm so excited for it. So October 29th, it's a Sunday.
So I'm gonna like quickly piggyback on you, because I think your excitement is, people need to understand the number of times that we would call or text and be like, how did this just happen? And we'd both be like, okay, this was such an answer to prayer. Like, we're like, we need this many sponsors by this date. There's no way in the history of nonprofits that's ever been done. And then all of a sudden, within a week, we'd get like 5 more. We both be like, how is this happening? Like, it was the first CIRS Fest.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it, right? In the nonprofit world, the first time you do an event, you normally don't make money on it. Like, you get your platform set, and we did. Like, that was incredible to me. That was insane, Olivia. Like, that was such a like confirmation that you are doing the right thing with this, and that this nonprofit is going to help people. This fund is going to help people. Well, you haven't even been with Malachi's message for a year. Like, July is a year, and everything that's happened in the last however many months it is. I was an English teacher. I don't do math well. However many months that is, it's incredible. And this year, one of the bands, so the way this happened too, one of the bands after was talking to us. And he's like, hey, have you ever thought about this venue? And it just so happens Olivia had reached out to them. It didn't work last year. And we're like, maybe again, we should try it. And we sat on it. We called the venue, and I think we can say this because it just gives them so much more credit. They said, we believe in what you're doing, and we want you back this year, and we're going to donate the venue. And so already, like, the beginning of the process, it is so like ordained that this is supposed to happen, and people are going to learn about CIRS, but more than that, they're going to come, enjoy themselves, have a good time, learn about the organization. And it's incredible. Like, yeah, her excitement is well like placed, because it was insane. It was 2 months of insanity. And I think we both just wanted to drink a bottle of wine when it was done. And
I didn't think Elizabeth was going to survive those 2 months.
Yeah. I honestly, it was wild. I mean, it was rough and amazing at the same time because I felt like we were sitting in the middle of this like miracle. And
Yes.
I have to give a lot of credit. Like we were talking about like relationships and stuff and how sometimes they go south, like we were talking about. But I want to acknowledge the fact that there's also people that have really helped make all of that happen. Like Kaden, first of all, for just helping me emotionally and physically through the whole thing. But like my parents, like our family, friends, like literally the town of Palmyra, where I'm from originally, just like came together. And I have to give them a shout out because through the people that have left and not decided to support, there has been an army of people who have supported and joined forces in raising awareness and helping raise funding to help other people. Like there has been also so many people just cheering us on. So I do want to acknowledge that too, because it could not have happened without all the volunteers that were there that also just were moving and grooving the whole time.
Yeah. We're excited, Emily, you're coming this year because we need help message booth. So you and John
are coming. I'll be there this year for sure. I don't think we've even discussed, Olivia, what is CIRS?
Oh, we haven't.
This is like our original phone conversation. Wait, why? What are we doing? Let's circle back.
Yeah. So CIRS is short for Chronic Inflammatory Response Syndrome. So basically, I'm not a doctor, but I'm going to say it in the best way that I know how to describe it. And so 20% of people, around 20%, have this gene that can lay dormant in their bodies like their entire lives. Some people will never know that they even have it, but it can become activated by the perfect storm of toxin exposure. So a lot of times that's through mold. And that was the case for me as well. So now that this gene is activated, like my body can't process out toxins as it normally should. And they just kind of recirculate through the body. And it causes the immune system to just send off all these different markers because our bodies want us to heal. But in this case, it just doesn't know how to heal because it's like, whoa, here we go. I'll help this way and that way. But it just, your inflammation, just levels in your entire body go wild. So there's a lot of different ways that it can show in different people. I believe there's 32 or 37, I don't know the exact number, in the 30s of different symptoms that you can have when you have CIRS. So that's why it can be really hard for doctors to even like navigate through to get the proper diagnosis. And a lot of times it's misdiagnosed with like fibromyalgia is a huge misdiagnosis that it can get. So it can be really difficult for people to find the right answer. So, and a lot of times too, like we were talking earlier, is the cognitive changes that can happen because literally inflammation can go to the brain as well. So there's a lot of anxiety and depression or even PTSD that this can be like kind of misdiagnosed as. Not that you're not experiencing those things, but the root cause of it could be CIRS. And so I think that is something too that recognizing is really important as well.
I think it's so important to get that recognized and get that diagnosis, because if not, then a lot of people are just, keep getting prescriptions written for them to suppress, this symptoms and that symptom and that symptom and that symptom, and never really knowing what that root cause is, which was your exposure.
Yeah, I think that's a great like point is you get caught in like a cycle. Like you said, like different prescription medications and this and that. Like I tried like different prescriptions for anxiety, and I've tried, I don't even know how many antibiotics I was on. I was on a PICC line for antibiotics, and I ended up getting a blood clot, and I was in the hospital. And it's kind of funny, but not funny. But Caden is, he was a nurse in the ICU. Now he's in school to be a nurse anesthetist. But at the time, he was like a patient care assistant. And so he was actually the person who did like my intake form. And so he made sure like I was on his floor and was like, what's your birthday? Like, I'm like, but it was really comforting. But like, that was another thing. And they're like, oh, well, we just think like I was on birth control at the time. They're like, I think it's because of that. And I'm like I've never had issues with that. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like it doesn't. I know the clotting level's right. I'm like, no, that's not it. Like I knew deep in my gut that wasn't it. And I was like, literally, I went to an infectious disease doctor, and that's who put me on the PICC line. And then after that didn't work, she's like, yeah, I don't really know. Like you're just gonna have to ride this out. Like you're just gonna have to deal with it. Like this is just gonna be what you're gonna have to deal with. Like there's nothing else that we can do. Like you were on the antibiotic at the strongest amount. And I was like in this place of just felt like desperation. Like really, like you're just giving up on me. Like that's where we're at. Like you can't do infectious disease. You can't do anything for me. And it's like, I know she was human and she did like all the best that she humanly knew how to do, but it left me in this place of like, well, what the heck, you know? And so we started looking into the mold thing more because I brought that up so many times. I'm like, I just feel like it has to be someone with mold. Like, and she said, no, once you are out of that environment, you should start feeling better. Once you get out of the environment, you should start feeling better. And it was months. I was like, I'm not feeling better. Like, you know, you say I'm supposed to feel better. I don't feel any better. Like maybe a teeny tiny bit. Like maybe a teensy bit better, but like I don't. And so it was really frustrating.
I would say too, with people that I know you've talked to and a lot of the applications I've gone through, if you think you have CIRS, be sure to look at the functional medicine doctor or shoemaker protocol doctor that you want to see first, and vet them and see if they actually know how to diagnose and treat CIRS, because there are a lot of functional medicine doctors that don't understand what it is, don't know how to test for it, or even if they know what it is, you have your appointment with them, then they go, oh, we don't know how to actually do the labs or the tests that need to be run. We can tell you what it is. And then you've just exhausted your time and energy and very precious financial resources. And I've heard a lot of that. And I think, Olivia, we've talked about that's unfortunately one of the things. If you think you have it, just vet the person you're going to be talking to first, so that you don't end with doctors like this that go, nope, sorry, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah, I think that is so good. And your gut feeling is like, not, I don't want to say always, but like 99.9% right. Like if you don't have a good feeling about it, or you're like, I don't know, it probably is because it's not a good fit. Like we went to functional medicine doctors. We went to people who like advertise that they knew how to treat CIRS, and they used some of the same medication that I was on. I found there was a doctor, shout out Dr. Denizio. I loved him, but he retired. He's so sweet. Like he was so sweet. And his mission, which I thought, like, honestly, because of him, I was able to start in the process of getting my treatment, because his mission was to keep his costs as low as he could so he can help as many people get healthy. And he's like, why am I to just get rich off of people like you who you need help? And so like it was cheap for what he was giving me, from what he specialized in, and he knew what he was doing. And he didn't run tests that weren't needed. He's like, no, you already got the diagnosis. We don't need to also scan your brain, because all these markers are here. Like we already know what's going on. You don't need to go and spend another however much money. Like he was awesome. And so after he retired, I had like 3 appointments with him, and then he was like, hey, I want to let you know, like he was super nice. But after that, we kind of went through this then again spiral, trying to find another doctor who knew, like this other person I went to like had all these great things that were said on the internet, but every time I had my appointment, I had to restart and tell my story. And I was the one telling her what we talked about last time, and what she, like, it was weird. And I was like, in my gut, the first time I was excited, but the second time when I had to repeat everything that I said in the precious 15-minute appointment that cost a lot of money, I was like, I'm wasting all this time. Like, this is your job. And so my gut was telling me, but then I went to her like 5 times and I spent so much money. And I was like, why did I do that? My gut was right. I should have trusted it. You know, so it is so true. Really make sure you A, trust your gut, and B, do the research that you can, that the resources that are out there.
The first doctor we saw, it was my husband's gut. I get the going back because I was so desperate. I was like, okay, they sound like they might know what they're talking about. And it was very similar. Actually, I'm kind of laughing in my head right now because I remember having to remind our doctor that we saw of what we had just talked about, or the labs that had just been run. And I remember thinking, shouldn't you have looked at my chart, glanced at it before we came back to see you? And it was like appointment 10, almost $20,000 later. And Derek, we were seeing a doctor out in California, and Derek flew in for one of the appointments. He was still in Texas, and he sat in the appointment with me, and we left, and he's like, do you not see that she's taking us for a ride? Like, do you not understand what's going on here? And he wasn't being mean. He's like, I knew it. I've told you the whole way through, like, what she's been telling you just does not sound right. Like, she's giving you the most vague answers, and we had to pay to get our lab results. I'm like, I already paid for the lab and the appointment. Now I have to pay for you to read me the results. And it was the same thing. And then the next doctor we found is our unicorn doctor that saved our lives. But yeah, your gut is huge. I agree with that. Emily and I talk about that all the time. She's like, my gut's telling me this. And I'm like, all right, we got to stop what we're doing and take notice then, because it's a real, yeah.
And it makes me so sad to hear that happened to you guys. And flying out to California, like, it just doesn't make sense. And that's what I think too. Like, there are so many people out there that do want to do good in this world. And then there are also people that don't. It's just like the, good and evil in the world, like, all the time. And I feel like in this world with mold, there's so many opportunities that people can take advantage. There's opportunities for deception, and some people just take it. And they see money and they see power, like, they see that as the end goal. And that's not what we were put on this earth to do. Like, we were we're all human. We're all supposed to get through this together. And there's people that see that in this world too. And so, like, not to discourage everybody, like, oh, everyone's out to take their money, but it's good to recognize it. And it's also good to remember there are good people. Like, you just have to find those people who have the good heart and the caring heart and to help,
Yeah.
And give yourself some compassion with that too, I think. Because I remember after, like, feeling so much almost shame and like, how did I let this happen? How did we get taken for a ride? Like, I'm supposed to protect my family, and my girls haven't gotten better. I haven't gotten better. It's been a year. And my husband actually said too, at that point, he's like, no, like, your brain is inflamed. You are super sick. Neurologically, you're sick, and you were trying to do what you thought was right. So give yourself a break, which was very gracious, right? Because I just spent a lot of our money. But I think people need to remember that side too, like, do the vetting. But if you run into a doctor and you realize you've spent 6 months and nothing's happened, don't beat yourself up. Go, okay, this has sucked, and I wish it hadn't happened, but I need to move on. Or you're just going to sit place and you're not ever going to find a good doctor, because you're always going to just be thinking about the bad ones that you run into. And there are, like you said, there are some really, really good ones that genuinely care about their patients that are out there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you brought up about shame, because it's like, shame has such a way of making us want to just crawl in a hole. It makes you not want it, just like you said, like, I just spent a lot of our money. And like, you could have easily just retracted and been like, I'm not going to go out on a limb and try another doctor. Yeah. I'm not gonna, that truly could have been what held you back to be healthy enough to have this fun, like you and Emily, like, to be healthy enough to do this good work. It's like, shame wants to hold us back. And like, I heard this saying, like, shame can't live in light. Whenever you talk about it, like I say to Kaden, I feel a lot of shame. Like, I'm not bringing in a lot of money right now, and I'm spending a lot of money, and I feel a lot of shame of that. And it stinks to say it, but it feels good. And then we can be on a whole nother level of communication. And so it's like recognizing that we're human and we are neurologically, a lot of us, most of us, having trouble with that, making sure you're making the right decisions. But that's what shame can't live in light, just being open and honest about where you're at with yourself, even, is super important.
Yeah, I love that. Honestly, I handled a lot of things not right when I was, recovering from mold. And I have shame in that, and how I, spoke to certain individuals, because it was like, why don't you do this? Why don't you look at this? And it's just, my brain was inflamed, and I was in a new territory that most people like you and Elizabeth know is very unknown unless you go through it. And it's just, it can turn you kind of into a different person. And I was very angry for quite a while, especially when I found out, that when you get taken advantage of, the first thing that I want to do is pick up the phone and call that person and be like, how dare you, But then I've learned that, that's what the enemy wants you to do. He wants to distract you and have you keep looking at that person and what they did versus doing what, you should be doing to get to where God wants you to be and wants you to have. And so I've realized now, Elizabeth knows, I talked to her about it, but it's just like, I'm not focusing on other people anymore. I'm just because that's just a distraction. I'm just gonna learn from it and move forward.
That is so beautiful too. And I think like forgiveness is a piece of that, like that I'm still learning. But like, I didn't realize how much resentment I was still having towards like people that were in my life, that like my landlord. Like I still get angry, and I'm still like, what the heck, dude? Like you knew. And so I think it's so natural, to recognize we're human, and like being able to forgive, because the act of forgiveness really isn't letting the other person off the hook. That's not what it is. I heard this saying, it's like, unforgiveness is drinking a poison and waiting for the other person to die. It's like, it doesn't work. Like you're holding in this stress in your own body, and half the time, which is sad, but half the time that other person doesn't even know that they hurt you that bad, or do they care? They might not care, which stinks, but it's true. And so it's like, holding on to this isn't doing them like, oh yay, I'm still mad at them, like I'm getting back at them. No, like it's really just hurting us when we kind of admit that to ourselves. And so I love this book enough that I think, I don't know if I told you about Emily. I know Elizabeth, I had mentioned it to you when I saw you, but I love it. And I would 100% tell everybody to go read it, by Sharon James. I think it's how you say her name. Right. It's amazing. And there's this exercise of forgiveness in that book, and writing down the person's name and writing down how they hurt you. And it just goes through this process of, you're not acknowledging what that person has done. Like you're acknowledging what that person's done. You're not just like hiding it, but you're finding a place of peace through it. I would totally recommend, even if you buy that book and just go through that chapter of forgiveness, it is so beautiful and freeing, but you have to work on that every day. It's an everyday thing.
It is. It's good. I've told a lot of people about it.
Have you read it?
Pardon?
Read it, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I have it after Olivia told me about it. I went and bought it. Like actually that day, I think, after I got home from Austin, I ordered it right away and started going into it. And I told my sister about it within like a week of that. I was like, hey, you need to read this book. And it's good. Emily, you should read this book. It's called Enough.
Why am I just not hearing about it?
I know. I swear I told you about. I'm sure I did. So Emily and I talk like daily, for those of you listening that are catching on to our relationship. So I'm sure I told you. If I didn't tell you about it, I am sorry. I'm acknowledging that I didn't tell you about it.
I acknowledge your apology.
There's a book called Enough. I can send you the link to it. Olivia told me about it. It's amazing. It helps you like learn how to break the lies that you tell yourself in your head, which so many of us get conditioned to do after mold exposure. So it's really good. You should read it, Emily.
Yeah, it talks about a lot of limiting beliefs that we have too.
Mhm.
And it's awesome, legit. I've told so many people about it, and it's only like what, $9 and some cents.
Yeah.
Like it's the best $9 and some cents that you could spend going through this, you know, going through mold exposure and in life in general, honestly.
Well, Olivia, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people go to learn more about your story or the CIRS support fund?
So you can go to Malachi's message. There's a tab. You can go to the support fund. I have my story on there you can learn more about. And also on social media, I tell a lot about my story and just, I try to put as much out there about my journey if it can help other people. I'm obviously not a doctor or anything like that, but if my story can be of assistance to somebody, please go check out my stuff. I have a YouTube channel, Olivia Farabaugh. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, like all the places. So you can go on all those to check me out more.
And if you want to learn more and hear their story of their mold illness and her health issues with their tiny home experience, they also just did an interview with Tiny Home's Giant Journey, correct?
Yes, that they did an incredible job incorporating all the different pieces of our journey, because there's a lot of pieces. And so, yeah, absolutely. Go check that out too. And if you want to live in a tiny house, I mean, that's a great resource as well.
Yeah.
That was a great interview. I really loved that interview with you guys and showing your tiny house.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. That was a blast. He came in with his little drone and I was like, this is going to be so cool. And it was awesome.